In April of 2017, Panera Bread published its final quarterly earnings as a public company. Revenue was $727 million. Same-store sales were up 5.3%. And buried in the press release was a single sentence that would age worse than anything else the company ever wrote. Panera promised to bake fresh bread from fresh dough every single day. 8 years later, every one of their 24 fresh dough bakery facilities will be closed. All of them. 0 remaining. 975 workers were laid off, facility by facility, documented through federal Warren Act filings from Houston to Atlanta to California to Massachusetts. The company, whose name literally comes from the Latin word for breadbasket, eliminated bread making from its operations entirely. And here is the part that matters. This was not a failure. This was a business model. Between 2023 and 2024, Panera's system-wide sales fell between 5 and 6.3%, landing at roughly $6.1 billion. In that same window, the American restaurant industry overall grew by 2%. That is a gap of 14 percentage points. Spending at Panera specifically dropped 12% in a single year, according to Circana. This is the forensic reconstruction of how a private equity firm bought one of America's most trusted restaurant brands for $7.5 billion, removed every element that made it valuable, sold a caffeinated beverage that became the subject of lawsuits, alleging it contributed to 2 deaths and 2 permanent cardiac injuries, failed twice to flip the company back to public markets, and left behind a chain that its own chief executive described as suffering from death by 1,000 paper cuts. The founder walked away with $300 million, invested in a direct competitor, and became a billionaire. The story starts in 1980 with a 400-square-foot cookie shop in Boston. Ron Shaich opened it after Harvard Business School, merged it with Au Bon Pain, took the combined company public, and in 1993 acquired a 20-location chain in St. Louis called the St. Louis Bread Company for $24 million. He renamed it Panera Bread. In 1999, Shaich sold off every division that was not Panera and renamed the entire public company after the bread chain. The stock was at $6 a share. By the time he sold it 18 years later, it was at $315 a share. That is roughly a 5,000% return, outperforming both Starbucks and Chipotle over 20 years. And the food matched the numbers. In 2014, Shaich launched the Clean Food Initiative. Panera banned more than 150 ingredients, reformulated over 100 menu items, and by January of 2017, declared itself the first and only national restaurant chain with a 100% clean menu. 7 years later, internal guidance would instruct stores to quietly remove every piece of that signage. Reuters reported the rollback saved an estimated $21 million a year. But in 2017, none of that had happened yet. Panera was the only national restaurant brand that employed overnight bakers who arrived before dawn to score baguettes and shape bread bowls by hand. Customers sat in dining rooms with warm lighting and real ceramic dishes. The company donated every unsold loaf to local charities at closing time. When families wanted a weekend lunch that felt a step above the drive-thru, Panera was where they went. People cared about the product, and you could taste it. That bakery network was the Moat, and moats are expensive. On April 5, 2017, Jab Holding announced it was acquiring the entire chain for $7.5 billion at $315 per share. Jab is a Luxembourg-based investment vehicle controlled by 4 heirs of the Reimann family, one of the wealthiest dynasties in Europe. Their fortune traces back to 1823, when Johann Adam Benckiser founded a chemical company. In 2019, the German newspaper Bild reported that earlier generations of the family had profited from forced labor during the Second World War. The current generation committed €250 million over 10 years to Holocaust-related projects through a renamed family foundation. The modern conglomerate operates with a consistent strategy across its portfolio. The acquisition closed on July 18, 2017. Panera was delisted from the Nasdaq. Shaich stepped down in November. He owned a little over 5% of the shares and pocketed approximately $300 million after taxes. He called the sale bittersweet. He praised JAB, saying they think about centuries, not decades. What followed was a textbook private equity extraction. The playbook has 6 steps, and JAB executed all of them. Step 1 is debt loading. The acquisition debt lands on the acquired company's balance sheet, not the buyer's. Debt is shifted to the target, not the new owners. Step 2 is ingredient downgrades. Reuters revealed Panera saved $21 million annually from changing ingredient sourcing. In March 2024, the company quietly removed all signage promising no antibiotics ever, vegetarian-fed, and grass-fed pasture-raised sourcing. The new policy allowed what they called judicious use of antibiotics in pork and turkey. 3 additives were removed from the banned list that Shaich had spent years building. Ingredients were changed to cut costs. Step 3 is portion shrinkage. Step 4 is labor reduction. Step 5 is menu simplification. And Step 6 is the exit, typically through an IPO at a higher valuation. Exit is how private equity realizes gains. Panera's own chief executive officer would later confirm Steps 2, 3, and 4 in a single quote. Paul Carbone, promoted from chief financial officer to chief executive officer in March 2025, said in November 2025 that the company shrunk portions, so guests would walk into the cafe to buy a sandwich that had gone up significantly in price, with lower quality ingredients, in a smaller size. He called it death by 1,000 paper cuts. Death by 1,000 paper cuts, he said. JAB had done it before. Krispy Kreme saw revenue double, but operating margin collapsed from 10% to 0.4%. The stock has lost roughly 84% of its value since the 2021 re-IPO. Margin collapsed under cost cuts. Pret Manger expanded to 700 locations, then booked a £553 million goodwill impairment. Goodwill losses followed expansion. Caribou Coffee shrank by 168 closures and was bundled into a holding company alongside Panera. Bundled into a portfolio, the brands were consolidated. A consistent playbook, a consistent result. But the cost-cutting went beyond ingredients and portions. In April of 2022, Panera launched charged lemonade alongside a subscription called the Unlimited Sip Club, initially $10.99 per month for unlimited refills. A large charged lemonade was 30 ounces. It contained 390 milligrams of caffeine, 124 grams of sugar, and 500 calories. A standard Red Bull has 80 milligrams of caffeine. A Monster Energy has 160 milligrams of caffeine. Combined, they contain 240 milligrams, still 150 milligrams less than a single large charged lemonade. 390 milligrams was not random. It was arithmetic. The FDA recommended daily maximum for healthy adults is 400 milligrams. Panera set the content at exactly 10 milligrams below that threshold. The drink sat in self-serve fountain dispensers next to regular lemonades and iced teas, and it was included in the unlimited refill subscription. A customer could drink multiple servings in a single visit. One commenter calculated that a heavy Sip Club user could consume over 1,000 milligrams of caffeine in a day through refills alone, more than 2.5 times the FDA's maximum. In-store signage described it as plant-based and clean, with as much caffeine as dark roast coffee, without specifying that comparison was per 30-ounce serving versus a 12-ounce cup. It was not labeled as an energy drink. Multiple employees later described warning parents on their own initiative. There was no corporate protocol for this, no training module, no official warning script. According to court filings, on September 10, 2022, a 21-year-old University of Pennsylvania student named Sarah Katz purchased a large charged lemonade in Philadelphia. She had long QT syndrome, diagnosed at age 5, a heart condition that makes irregular heartbeats potentially fatal. She had been a SIP club member for about 10 days. Hours later, she went into cardiac arrest at a restaurant with friends, suffered a second arrest at the hospital, and was pronounced dead. The medical examiner attributed her death to cardiac arrhythmia due to long QT syndrome. The lawsuit alleged the caffeine triggered the fatal episode. According to a second lawsuit, a 46-year-old man named Dennis Brown drank 3 charged lemonades in 90 minutes at a Florida location in October of 2023. He had a chromosomal deficiency disorder and high blood pressure. He suffered a fatal cardiac arrest walking home. Those 2 cases involved individuals with pre-existing conditions. The next 2 did not. According to a third lawsuit, a 28-year-old occupational therapist named Lauren Scarrett, with no known heart conditions, drank 2.5 charged lemonades in Rhode Island. She was diagnosed with atrial fibrillation and is now on daily heart medication. According to a fourth lawsuit, an 18-year-old named Luke Adams, with no known health issues, ordered a large charged lemonade in Pennsylvania in March of 2024. That evening, he suffered sudden cardiac arrest at a movie theater. Hospital records noted seizures possibly related to cardiac arrest secondary to caffeine intake from the drink. He now has a permanent subcutaneous defibrillator. All 4 cases were settled. Panera denied wrongdoing. No terms were disclosed. If you are watching, and this is your first breakdown of how corporate food decisions actually get made, consider subscribing. We do this every week. CNN reported that Panera kept the drink on the menu over a year after the first lawsuit because removing it could have come across as an implied admission that something was wrong with it. A crisis communications expert described it as a cost-benefit analysis. The FDA issued statements saying it was gathering information and was saddened to hear of the passing. No formal investigation was announced. No recall was issued. No enforcement action was taken. The drink was discontinued in May of 2024. The regulatory gap is structural. The FDA requires caffeine labeling on packaged products but not restaurant beverages. The warning labels on Monster and Red Bull are voluntary, part of a self-regulation agreement through the American Beverage Association. Panera was not a member. Restaurants are only legally required to disclose calories, not caffeine. A food safety commentator identified this gap 8 months before the first lawsuit and publicly predicted someone would be seriously harmed. While the lawsuits were proceeding, the frozen dough transition was accelerating. At its peak, Panera operated 24 centralized fresh dough facilities. The replacement was par baking, where third-party factories partially bake bread, freeze it, and ship it to stores for finishing. The exact savings were never disclosed, but the same cost program saved $21 million a year on ingredients alone. Federal WARN Act filings document the closures. In Houston, 84 workers were affected. In Chandler, Arizona, 64. In Atlanta, 86. In Ontario and Stockton, California, 350 combined. Facilities in Kansas, North Carolina, Michigan, Florida, Missouri, and Massachusetts were also closed. 975 jobs and counting were lost, with every remaining facility scheduled to shut down by 2027. A former baker wrote online that bakers went from being the most important team members in the cafe to being tossed by the wayside, replaced by frozen pre-made pastries that workers put a few toppings on and baked straight from the freezer. Another overnight baker said the company told him he would lose his benefits, his vacation time, and a fifth of his pay. He fulfilled his last shift and never went back. A commenter said her sister had been a Panera baker for 19 years and had just received her walking papers. The menu followed. In April of 2024, 47 items were eliminated. Salads went from 8 ingredients to 5. Cherry tomatoes were left unsliced. Avocado halves were served uncut. The service degraded in stages. Table service to buzzer pucks to yelling names to silent counter pickup. One commenter summarized it as going from almost as nice as a sit-down cafe to just another fast food joint, but still with cafe prices. If you ate at Panera in 2016 and again in 2024, the difference was not subtle. Between 2017 and 2024, Panera opened 166 new cafes, growing from 2,050 locations to 2,216. Revenue went from $5.5 billion to $6.1 billion, but the growth stalled and reversed, with 2024 falling below 2023. More stores. Fewer customers per store. The demand was collapsing even as the footprint expanded. Average franchise unit volume fell from 2.8 million to 2.6 million. Panera dropped from number 1 in fast casual to number 3, behind Chipotle and Panda Express. Its credit rating sits at B4, junk grade. The EYM Cafe Group, which operated 15 Panera franchises in Houston, filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy in August of 2025. Franchise owners were expected to fund mandatory remodels that cost $400,000, while paying 6 to 8% in royalties on revenue that was declining. Online, the customer testimony is relentless: $20 for half a sandwich and a thimble of soup, $45 for lunch for 2, $85 for 4 chicken sandwiches, 4 drinks, and 1 soup. According to employees, the same mac and cheese that sells for $15 per bowl is reportedly manufactured at a stuffer's factory in Ohio, where it was available pre-pandemic, by the case for $16 total. A case. The exit strategy failed twice. A SPAC deal with Danny Meyer's investment company expired in June of 2022. A confidential IPO filing was submitted to the SEC in December of 2023. It never materialized, despite Panera cutting 17% of its corporate workforce in the months prior. JAB has held Panera for more than 8 years, with no successful exit. The typical private equity hold is 3 to 7 years. Ron Shaich took his $300 million and founded an investment firm called Act 3 Holdings. His primary investment, roughly $175 million, went into a Mediterranean fast casual chain called Cava. When Cava went public in June of 2023, the stock surged more than 330% in 18 months. Shaich's net worth reached $1.6 billion on the Bloomberg Billionaires Index. Cava now operates more than 300 locations and is positioned precisely in the premium fast casual space that Panera vacated under JB. The founder who sold Panera is funding the company that is replacing it. Shaich has not publicly expressed regret about the sale. He has not directly criticized JAB. He published a best-selling book in 2023 called Know What Matters. In an interview, he said that when you focus exclusively on the bottom line, you destroy the customer experience. In November of 2025, Panera announced a 3-year turnaround called Panera Rise, targeting $7 billion by 2028. The plan explicitly reverses many cuts from the JAB era. Romaine-only salads are coming back. Ingredient counts are increasing from 5 to 8. Front-of-house labor is being reinvested. But the plan does not reverse the frozen dough transition. Every remaining facility will still close. The company named after bread is attempting to rebuild trust while permanently outsourcing the product at the foundation of its identity. Its CEO said the customer does not hate them. The customer has forgotten about them. 16% of all bankruptcy filings in the United States involve companies owned by private equity. More than 40% of the largest restaurant franchise groups have private equity ownership. Red Lobster went bankrupt in May of 2024. The pattern repeats because the pattern is the product. Someone builds something real. Bread, baked from scratch, served in a place that felt like a neighborhood and not a transaction. They sell it to people who see the brand as a container for debt and the customers as a line on a spreadsheet. The new owners strip the cost centers, which happen to be the things that made people care. Sales hold on momentum and memory. Then the memory fades, and the company is left asking why. Every cut was a decision. Every decision was a line item. Next, the 3% fee hidden inside every transaction you have ever made.